All right, future food guardians, let's talk. You're about to step into a world where science meets the supper table, where chemistry crashes the kitchen party. Your job? To keep people safe from what they eat. Now you might be thinking about the usual suspects. Bacteria like E. coli, viruses, maybe some moldy bread. Those are important, no doubt. But I want to introduce you to a sneakier, more mysterious group of troublemakers. They hide in plain sight, in potatoes, in tomatoes, even in your morning coffee. I'm talking about plant alkaloids. These little chemical compounds are fascinating, powerful, and sometimes downright dangerous. They are nature's own chemical warfare agents, and they can find their way onto our plates. Think of a plant. It can't run, it can't hide, it can't throw a punch. So how does it defend itself from being eaten by every hungry bug, animal, or fungus that comes along? It cooks up its own chemical arsenal. Alkaloids are a huge part of that defense system. They can be bitter, toxic, or just plain weird tasting, which is a plant's way of saying, hey buddy, find another snack. But here's the twist. What's bad for a beetle can sometimes be good for us. Or in other cases, really, really bad for us. Understanding this dual nature is absolutely critical for anyone whose job is to protect the public's food supply. It's a chemical balancing act. As a food safety officer, you are the gatekeeper. You are the thin line between a safe, enjoyable meal and a trip to the emergency room. Your knowledge can't just be skin deep. You need to dig into the science of food, and that includes understanding these complex natural compounds. Why? Because alkaloids can contaminate food through cross-contact with weeds in a field, improper harvesting, or even through the natural biology of the food plant itself. Knowing which plants contain which alkaloids, how they get into our food, and what levels are dangerous is not just academic. It's a fundamental part of your professional toolkit. It's what separates a good officer from a great one, so grab your lab coat and a notebook. We're going on a deep dive into the world of plant alkaloids. I promise to make it as painless as possible, maybe even a little fun. We'll break down what they are, explore their good side and their bad side, and most importantly, outline exactly what you need to do to manage them. By the end of this, you won't just see a potato. You'll see a complex chemical factory capable of producing solanine. You won't just see a cup of coffee. You'll see a carefully managed dose of caffeine. Welcome to the invisible world that shapes so much of what we eat. Let's get cooking. So, what is this alkaloid thing I keep mentioning? Let's break it down. No advanced chemistry degree required. The word itself gives us a clue. It comes from alkali, which refers to basic compounds, and oide, meaning like. So, an alkaloid is an alkali-like compound. In simple terms, they are naturally occurring chemical compounds that contain at least one nitrogen atom in their structure. This nitrogen atom is the key player. It's what usually gives them their potent biological effects. Think of it as the secret ingredient in a plant's chemical recipe, the one that packs the punch. They are found in about 1/5 of all plant species, from flowers to fungi to vegetables. Now, let's talk characteristics. First, as we said, they contain nitrogen, usually tucked away in a ring-like structure. This is their chemical signature. Second, they have profound physiological effects on humans and other animals. This is the big one. They can be stimulants, painkillers, poisons, or psychedelics. It's all about how that specific alkaloid molecule interacts with our own body's chemistry. Third, they are often bitter to the taste. This is no accident. It's nature's warning label, a built-in do not eat sign for herbivores. Your tongue is a surprisingly good chemical detector, and that bitter reaction is your brain telling you to be cautious. Another key feature is their incredible structural diversity. There isn't just one type of alkaloid. There are thousands upon thousands of them, each with a unique shape and function. This is why their effects are so varied. The structure of morphine is different from caffeine, which is different from nicotine, and that structural difference is why one eases pain, one wakes you up, and one is a highly addictive stimulant. Finally, it's important to know that alkaloids are considered secondary metabolites. A plant's primary metabolites are things like sugars and proteins, the stuff it needs for basic survival, growth, and reproduction. Secondary metabolites are the extras, the specialized compounds it makes for defense, attraction, or other specific purposes. So to recap, alkaloids are nitrogen-containing, biologically active, often bitter, structurally diverse chemicals that plants make for special purposes, mainly defense. They are not inherently good or bad. They are simply tools that plants use to survive in a tough world. Our interaction with them is what defines their role. We've learned to extract them for medicine. We consume them for pleasure, and sometimes we get accidentally poisoned by them. As a food safety officer, your job is to understand this complex relationship and manage the risks. It's about respecting the power of nature's chemistry. Long before we had modern pharmaceutical companies and sterile labs, humans were practicing chemistry in the forest. For millennia, traditional medicine has relied on plants to heal the sick, and at the heart of many of these plant-based remedies are alkaloids. These compounds are, without a doubt, some of the most important medicines ever discovered. They are a testament to nature's ingenuity and our own cleverness in figuring out how to use it. When we talk about the medicinal uses of alkaloids, we're talking about a history that has saved countless lives and eased immense suffering. It's a pharmacy built by Mother Nature herself. The undisputed king of medicinal alkaloids is morphine. Extracted from the opium poppy, morphine is an incredibly powerful painkiller, or analgesic. Its ability to block pain signals to the brain is legendary, making it an essential tool in surgery, chronic pain management, and end-of-life care. Scientists have even used morphine's chemical structure as a blueprint to create other related painkillers, like codeine, also found naturally in the poppy, and a host of semi-synthetic opioids. While they come with a high risk of addiction, their medical value is simply undeniable. They fundamentally changed our ability to manage severe pain. But the story doesn't end with pain relief. Let's look at quinine, an alkaloid from the bark of the cinchona tree. For centuries, malaria was a deadly scourge across the globe. The discovery that quinine could effectively treat this disease was a monumental breakthrough in public health, allowing for exploration and settlement in tropical regions that were previously uninhabitable. Another star player is atropine from the deadly nightshade plant. In controlled tiny doses, atropine is used by eye doctors to dilate pupils for exams, and in emergency medicine to treat certain types of slow heart rate, and as an antidote for some nerve agent poisonings. It's a classic example of the poison being in the dose. From the battlefield to the operating room, alkaloids have been indispensable. Vincristine and vinblastine, two alkaloids from the Madagascar periwinkle, are potent chemotherapy drugs used to fight various cancers, including leukemia and lymphoma. They work by stopping cancer cells from dividing, a powerful application of a plant's defensive chemistry. Even everyday alkaloids have their place. The caffeine in our coffee and tea is a mild stimulant that can improve focus and is even included in some pain relief medications to increase their effectiveness. These are not just interesting factoids. They are proof that the line between a food, a drug, and a poison can be incredibly thin. While we've harnessed some alkaloids for healing, it's crucial to remember their original purpose: defense. In the plant kingdom, alkaloids are the chemical equivalent of teeth, claws, and venom. They are potent pesticides, and in many cases, deadly poisons. This is the other side of the coin, the dark side that every food safety officer must understand and respect. A plant doesn't care if you're a human or a locust. If it has a chemical designed to stop something from eating it, that chemical will do its job. The effectiveness of these compounds as deterrents is precisely what makes them so dangerous when they end up in our food supply at the wrong concentration. Let's start with their role as nature's pesticides. Nicotine, for example, is a famous alkaloid found in the tobacco plant. While humans use it as a stimulant, it's a powerful neurotoxin for most insects. In fact, for a long time, nicotine-based extracts were sold commercially as organic pesticides for agriculture. Another group, the pyrethrum alkaloids found in chrysanthemum flowers, are also widely used as natural insecticides because they are effective against bugs but break down quickly in the environment and are less harmful to mammals. Plants evolved these chemicals to protect themselves, and we simply borrowed their strategy for our own crops. However, this defensive chemistry can be lethal. Some of the most famous poisons in history are plant alkaloids. Take strychnine from the seeds of the Strychnos nux vomica tree. It's an incredibly toxic compound that causes excruciating muscle convulsions, leading to death by asphyxiation. It has a notorious history as a poison in fiction and in reality. Similarly, conine from the poison hemlock plant is infamous as the substance used to execute the philosopher Socrates. It works by paralyzing the muscles, eventually stopping the respiratory system. These are extreme examples, but they perfectly illustrate the raw power locked within these plant compounds. The real challenge for food safety is that many of these toxic alkaloids exist in plants we might not consider poisonous. For instance, lupin beans are a popular food in many parts of the world, but they contain bitter, toxic alkaloids that must be leached out by soaking them in water for days before they are safe to eat. If this process is done incorrectly, it can lead to poisoning. Similarly, certain wild mushrooms contain deadly amatoxins and phallotoxins, which are alkaloids that destroy liver and kidney cells. Misidentification of wild foods is a common route to severe alkaloid poisoning. This is where the danger lies, not just in obviously deadly plants, but in the mishandling or misidentification of more common ones. Beyond medicine and poison, there lies a third vast territory for alkaloids, their use as stimulants and recreational substances. This is where human culture and plant chemistry have had a long, complicated, and often controversial relationship. From the morning cup of coffee that gets the world moving to the illegal drugs that destroy lives, alkaloids are central to the story of how we alter our own consciousness and energy levels. These substances work by hijacking our brain's chemistry, mimicking or blocking our natural neurotransmitters to produce a desired effect, whether it's alertness, euphoria, or a psychedelic journey. The most widely used psychoactive substance on the planet is an alkaloid, caffeine. Found in coffee beans, tea leaves, cacao pods, and cola nuts, caffeine is, well, the engine of the modern world. It works by blocking adenosine, a neurotransmitter that makes us feel sleepy. By getting in adenosine's way, caffeine keeps our neurons firing, making us feel alert, focused, and energetic. It's a relatively mild and socially acceptable way we use a plant's defensive chemical for our own benefit. But even with caffeine, the dose makes the poison. Extremely high intakes can lead to anxiety, heart palpitations, and in rare cases, death. It's a daily reminder of the power of these compounds. Moving up the scale of potency and risk, we find nicotine from the tobacco plant. Nicotine is a powerful stimulant that acts on specific receptors in the brain, causing a release of adrenaline and dopamine. This creates a short-lived feeling of pleasure and alertness, which is what makes it so incredibly addictive. Historically, tobacco was used in shamanic rituals, but its commercialization has turned this particular alkaloid into one of the biggest public health challenges in the world. The plant's chemical defense mechanism has become a globally traded commodity with severe health consequences. Then we enter the realm of illicit and highly dangerous alkaloids. Cocaine, extracted from the leaves of the coca plant native to South America, is a potent central nervous system stimulant. It creates intense euphoria by preventing the reuptake of dopamine in the brain, letting it build up to unnatural levels. This powerful high is matched by an equally powerful potential for addiction, overdose, and long-term health problems. Similarly, the opium poppy gives us not only morphine but also the raw material for heroin, a semi-synthetic opioid that has fueled devastating addiction crises worldwide. These substances show the extreme end of the alkaloid spectrum, where the interaction with human biology becomes profoundly destructive. Now we get to the heart of the matter for a food safety officer. How do these potent chemicals end up where they shouldn't be? In our food. Alkaloid contamination is a subtle but serious threat. It doesn't announce itself with a funny smell or a weird color like bacterial spoilage might. It's an invisible danger, and it can happen in several ways, from the farm to the fork. Understanding these pathways is the first step in preventing them. It's your job to think like a detective and trace the potential routes of contamination before they lead to a public health issue. One of the most common routes is through the commingling of crops with toxic weeds during harvest. Imagine a vast field of wheat or corn. Growing among the crop plants are weeds, some of which might be alkaloid producers like ragwort or Jimson weed. Modern harvesting machines are efficient, but they aren't always selective. They can accidentally gather up these toxic weeds along with the grain. If these weeds are not properly screened out, their seeds and plant fragments, containing pyrrolizidine or tropane alkaloids, can be ground into flour or mixed into animal feed, contaminating the final product. This has led to documented cases of mass poisonings in both humans and livestock. Another major issue arises from the plant itself. Some of our staple food crops naturally produce their own toxic alkaloids as a defense mechanism, and certain conditions can cause these levels to spike. The classic example is the potato and its glycoalkaloids, solanine and chaconine. These alkaloids are concentrated in the sprouts, the peel, and any parts of the potato that have turned green from light exposure. Eating a potato with high levels of these glycoalkaloids can cause gastrointestinal distress, fever, and neurological symptoms. This is why we are always told to cut away the green bits and not to eat potatoes that have sprouted excessively. It's a built-in food safety rule based on alkaloid chemistry. Finally, contamination can occur through improper preparation or misidentification. As mentioned with lupin beans, some foods are only safe after specific processing steps to remove their natural alkaloids. If these steps are rushed or skipped, the food remains toxic. The world of foraging for wild foods is also fraught with peril. Many edible plants have poisonous lookalikes that are packed with dangerous alkaloids. A person who mistakes deadly nightshade for a harmless berry or poison hemlock for wild carrot is in for a catastrophic lesson in botany and toxicology. Your role in public education about these risks is just as important as your role in regulation and inspection. So, presented with this complex world of hidden chemicals, what is a food safety officer supposed to do? Your role is multifaceted, blending science, regulation, investigation, and education. You are the frontline defense, and your actions, or inaction, can have very real consequences. Think of your job as having three main pillars: regulation and monitoring, investigation and management, and education and communication. Mastering all three is essential for effectively protecting the public from the risks posed by plant alkaloids in the food supply. You are not just an inspector, you are a risk manager. First and foremost is your role in regulation and monitoring. This means knowing the rules inside and out. Regulatory bodies around the world set maximum permissible levels for certain alkaloids in specific foodstuffs. For example, there are legal limits for ergot alkaloids in cereal grains and for pyrrolizidine alkaloids in honey and herbal teas. Your job is to ensure that food producers and importers are complying with these limits. This involves inspecting facilities, reviewing testing records, and sometimes taking samples for laboratory analysis. You need to be vigilant and understand the why behind each regulation, which is to keep exposure below the threshold of harm. The second pillar is investigation and management. When a problem does occur, say, a report of illness linked to a particular food product, you become a detective. Your task is to trace the problem back to its source. Was it a contaminated batch of raw ingredients? Was there a failure in processing? Did cross-contamination occur? This requires a systematic approach, from interviewing sick individuals to conducting a full traceback of the food's journey. If an alkaloid contamination is confirmed, you are responsible for managing the response, which could include overseeing a product recall, issuing public warnings, and ensuring the contaminated food is removed from the market to prevent further harm. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, is your role as an educator and communicator. You cannot be everywhere at once. Therefore, empowering producers and the public with knowledge is one of your most powerful tools. This means educating farmers about the dangers of toxic weeds and best practices for harvesting. It means working with food manufacturers to help them implement effective quality control systems to screen for alkaloids. And it means communicating risks to the public in a clear, calm, and practical way, explaining why they should avoid green potatoes or be cautious when foraging for wild plants. A well-informed public is a safer public. Alright, we've covered a lot of ground. It's a complex topic, so let's boil it all down to the essentials. Think of this as your pre-exam cheat sheet, the 10 things you absolutely must remember about plant alkaloids as you prepare for your career as a food safety officer. These points summarize the core concepts and will serve as a solid foundation for your understanding. Memorize them, understand them, and apply them. They are the bedrock of managing this particular food safety challenge. Let's count them down. 1. Nitrogen is key. Alkaloids are naturally occurring organic compounds that must contain at least one nitrogen atom, which is largely responsible for their potent biological activity. 2. Nature's defenders. They are secondary metabolites, meaning they aren't for basic growth but serve specialized functions for the plant, primarily as a chemical defense against herbivores, insects, and pathogens. 3. The dose makes the poison. The same alkaloid can be a medicine at a low controlled dose, like atropine, and a deadly poison at a higher dose. Context and concentration are everything. 4. Bitter is a warning. Many alkaloids have a distinct bitter taste. This is nature's built-in warning system, a signal to stop eating. Teach consumers to trust this instinct. 5. Contamination happens at the source. A primary route of food contamination is at the farm, through the accidental co-harvesting of toxic, alkaloid-containing weeds with staple crops like grains. 6. Some foods have a dark side. Be aware of common food plants that naturally produce toxic alkaloids like potatoes, solanine, tomatoes, tomatine, and improperly prepared lupin beans. 7. Know your limits. Regulatory agencies set maximum legal limits for specific alkaloids, for example, ergot and pyrrolizidine, in certain foods. Your job is to enforce these standards. 8. Processing matters. Some foods require specific processing, like soaking or cooking, to reduce natural alkaloid levels to a safe concentration. A failure in processing is a failure in safety. 9. You are an educator. Your role extends beyond enforcement. Educating farmers, producers, and the public about the risks and proper handling procedures is a critical part of prevention. 10. Stimulant, medicine, poison. Remember the three main phases of alkaloids. They can be beneficial, like caffeine or morphine, recreational, like nicotine or cocaine, or toxic, like strychnine or conine, and the lines can be blurry. You've read the material, you've absorbed the key points. Now it's time to put your knowledge to the test. A good food safety officer needs to have this information at their fingertips. These questions are designed to mimic what you might face in an exam, or more importantly, in a real-world scenario. Don't just look for the answer, think about the why behind it. Understanding the reasoning is what will make you effective in your role. Let's see how you do. Good luck. 1. What is the defining chemical feature of a plant alkaloid? The defining feature is that they are naturally occurring organic compounds containing at least one nitrogen atom, usually within a heterocyclic ring. This nitrogen atom is responsible for their basicity and biological activity. 2. A consumer reports feeling nauseous and dizzy after eating a potato casserole. They mention the potatoes tasted unusually bitter. What alkaloid might be responsible? The likely culprits are the glycoalkaloids solanine and chaconine. These are naturally present in potatoes, and their concentration can increase significantly when potatoes are exposed to light, greening, or sprout. The bitter taste is a classic indicator. 3. Why is the co-harvesting of grain crops with weeds like ragwort a major food safety concern? Ragwort contains toxic pyrrolizidine alkaloids. If it's harvested and processed along with the grain, these heat-stable alkaloids can contaminate the final product, like flour or bread, posing a serious risk of liver damage to consumers. 4. Name one alkaloid used as a medicine and one used as a natural pesticide. Medicinal morphine as a painkiller, or quinine as an anti-malarial. Pesticide nicotine from tobacco, or pyrethrins from chrysanthemums. 5. What is the primary mechanism by which the stimulant caffeine works? Caffeine works by acting as an antagonist to adenosine receptors in the brain. It blocks adenosine, a neurotransmitter that promotes sleepiness, thereby leading to increased alertness and neuronal activity. 6. A shipment of imported herbal tea is flagged for testing. What class of alkaloids would you be most concerned about? You would be most concerned about pyrrolizidine alkaloids, or PAs. Many herbs used in teas can be contaminated with PA-containing plants, and regulations for these are becoming increasingly strict due to their potential for causing liver damage. 7. Why is it unsafe to forage for and eat wild plants unless you are an expert? Many poisonous plants contain deadly alkaloids and bear a striking resemblance to edible plants. For example, poison hemlock, which contains conine, can be mistaken for wild carrot. Misidentification can lead to severe poisoning and death. 8. What are the three main pillars of a food safety officer's role regarding alkaloids? The three pillars are 1. Regulation and monitoring, enforcing legal limits. 2. Investigation and management, responding to incidents and recalls. And 3. Education and communication, informing producers and the public. 9. Explain the concept of a secondary metabolite using alkaloids as an example. Primary metabolites are essential for an organism's basic survival, like sugars or proteins. Secondary metabolites are compounds not required for basic life, but serve specialized functions. Alkaloids are secondary metabolites in plants, primarily serving as a chemical defense against being eaten. 10. A batch of lupin beans is implicated in a foodborne illness outbreak. What is the most likely cause? The most likely cause is improper processing. Lupin beans contain toxic quinolizidine alkaloids which must be removed by a lengthy process of soaking and rinsing in water. If this leaching process was incomplete, the beans would remain toxic. Keep studying, stay curious, and never underestimate the power of chemistry in the kitchen. The public is counting on you.